Hello YouTube. This will be my first video. Um, Today I wanted to talk a bit about um, quantum random number generators and asymmetric encryption. So when you use PGP or any asymmetric encryption really, you've got public keys and private keys. Public keys readily available. The private keys are the ones that we'd want to find. If we wanted to break the encryption. So with hardware encryption, it is, quote, truly random because they use quantum tunneling. The other version is algorithmic random number generators. Those are just pseudo-random. That's what the internet says anyways. The more I was looking into quantum tunneling and how it all works, I also came across the Global Consciousness Project. And according to Princeton University, their quantum tunneling random number generators start to show patterns when human consciousness as a collective starts feeling a similar emotion. You can find more on the Global Consciousnness Project website. I'm not going to go in too deep of a detail because the resource is readily available. But I was wondering, could you perhaps use the GCP to find the patterns in the quantum tunneling random number generators that you use to generate private keys in asymmetric encryption? Because once there's a pattern, a discernible pattern, then you can crack it. Because we've been able to do that with algorithmic encryption since we started doing encryption. Everything that I can find right now is saying that quantum tunneling is truly random, and there are a few skeptics, that myself included, that nothing is truly random. I guess because you have the universe, and if we have laws of physics, of quantum physics, the way that we understand them, if there are any constants in this world, then one could reasonably assume that there is no randomness. So given that, we may not know how to break quantum tunneling random number generators, or we'll find the pattern yet, but time will tell, right? I'm a big proponent of like the universe and us being, since we're a product of the universe. I like to think that the universe wouldn't be able to create something that is able to conjure up an idea that isn't possible in the universe. we just don't have the necessary knowledge or know-how to do it yet. Maybe we do, because, I mean, you got Black Science, Skunkworks, all that jazz, and technology is probably 50, maybe even 100 years ahead than what's publicly available. Yeah, I don't really know. I guess that's why I'm going into this field, to try to find out more about this stuff than I otherwise would. I guess I should probably have studied like physics and quantum physics, but universities are kind of a wash. Far too many liberals, and the whole groupthink aspect of it. I went to university. I got a bachelor's degree. I mean, it nothing special. It was just a Bachelor of Arts in German. But from all the classes I took in German and business and all my gen eds, people, the professors, students, they weren't very receptive of thoughts that went against their perception, their narrative. So once I got my bachelor's, I kind of dipped, and I don't really plan on going back. That's kind of an unrelated note, I guess. But so, like, the random number generator website that like a lot of people use for just basic stuff, it uses atmospheric noise, if I remember correctly. And that's certainly not random, right? You got the sun, you got all the stars, planets, all emitting electromagnetic radiation, and it goes and hits our atmosphere, and then bam, you got noise, and then you got like all the bodies on Earth itself, and then everything that is created by man, like radio waves and all that jazz, contributing to that noise. So the pattern would be immensely complex, but there would be a pattern, right? So like that, and like the algorithmic random number generators, since we created them, and we are pattern-seeking creatures, we subconsciously put a pattern in there. And the same thing, like if it was created by an artificial intelligence, since we create the artificial intelligence, we would subconsciously put a pattern recognition and pattern seeking behavior in the artificial intelligence. And then it would also do that in anything that it creates. I guess that's why music is so beautiful, because of the patterns that it creates and that we are able to recognize. But since we don't live on the quantum level or the quantum field, we're a little bit larger than that. It is harder for us to discern a pattern, and especially since my understanding of quantum physics is that when you observe a quantum particle, it leaves the superposition and essentially, for lack of better words, decides what position it will be in. And my teacher was talking about how that would be like a way to notice or be able to tell if an attacker had obtained access to the key, which makes sense to me. If the attacker got access to the key and they saw the key, well, they're a person, they observed it, so it instead of being in a superposition, it had to choose since we observed it, and you'd be able to tell that because it would just be in that position afterwards, if my understanding is correct. Which I guess another divergent topic on that is every state in the universe, does it only exist when we observe it? So I know that that's like in psychology, like as you are in developmental psychology, as you get older, you start to have like object permanence, and you start to realize that like other people have different thoughts and experiences and knowledge than you do. But what if that's the reason why we have life? Maybe not even just on this planet. Maybe other planets and other other solar systems, etc. Life is there to observe in order for the universe and reality to take place. And another thought about like the space-time. So when I was growing up as a kid, I was taught, I guess, that space and time were two separate things, but they're not. As I got older, I found some papers, and the consensus slowly started to change to space-time, them being one and the same. And that makes more sense to me, especially with Tesla's theories and Einstein's not so eloquent theories, and how space dilates the faster that you travel, or time dilates the faster that you travel in space, until you reach light speed, and then time stands still. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but that's my understanding. So we have the upper limit of light speed that we know of. Now, whether that is an actual limit or not, I don't think so. Because time, it's not linear, right? It doesn't just go from point A to point B. It's a circle. Well, not even a circle. It would be like a sphere or a fourth dimension, a higher dimensional object that us three-dimensional beings wouldn't really be able to comprehend unless we dedicate our whole lives to it. Further tangent. Wow, tangent on tangent. That's who I am. So with that, time travel has to be a potential. And I mean, you can be a smartass and say that we're traveling through time right now. which we are, right? In our perspective, we're going forward through time. But I would think that you'd be able to, from our perspective, go backwards in time. Because if you just bend space instead of bending the time, or you just go so slow, right? Because you go faster and faster, and time dilates, and it takes longer for each second to pass. So if you just slowed everything down far enough into, we call it absolute zero, which is 0 Kelvin. But that's just what our current understanding is. It doesn't necessarily mean that it can't go past 0 Kelvin. So you get colder than that, and things start going backwards, right? At least that makes sense to me. And I don't know if y'all have ever heard about this, but like I hear, like read about it on the internet and like on TV shows where like if you could time travel, what would be like the first thing that you do? And a lot of people are like kill Hitler, right? Or like prevent other atrocities from occurring. What if what we're experiencing right now is just time travelers muddling with the past, but I'm going to assume that they're humans, or at least creatures with human-like intelligence. They don't realize that it's all set in stone. Everything that's going to happen will happen. And that brings me back to my previous point of there is nothing random about this world, about this universe. If there's a pattern, and with any pattern, right, you take what you know has happened and you're able to predict what will happen with a reasonable certainty. And if you have a long enough pattern and you've analyzed it enough, then you can be without a shadow of a doubt that you'll know what the next step in the pattern is going to be. So if there is, if this universe is patterned, if there are patterns everywhere, then everything is, I guess, predetermined, because everything will happen and has happened and is happening all at the same time. It's just that our perspective is on a 3-dimensional scale, or I guess 4-dimensional, but yeah. Because I was having, I remember this conversation that I had with one of my college buddies a couple of years back, and we both came to the same thought at like the same time, that that we had already had the conversation that we had, just in the last iteration of this universe. Because we didn't come from nothing. At least I don't think we did. And if the current theory of the Big Bang is true, then we have a singularity at the beginning, Well, what came before the singularity? One of the theories of how the universe is going to end in like 100 trillion years or some shit, is that everything will collapse in on itself because of gravity. And once you run out of like heat energy and velocity, then as things slow down, they'll just the weak force of gravity will just eventually overpower and pull everything back in. And it'll be like a big reset, like in a very long time. Well, in our perspective, right? So I guess I went on a lot of rambling and a lot of tangents, and I kind of diverted a lot from my original question. So I'm just going to reiterate. And if quantum tunneling has a pattern, which the Global Consciousness Project seems to believe, then would we be able to find a way to break the quantum tunneling random number generators and in turn asymmetric keys produced by those random number generators, just like we do algorithmic random number generators? Yeah, I guess that's all I have. I hope that this video made you ponder a bit, and if you have any insight, answers, or questions, I would love to read them, and I'll try to touch on them in the next tangent that I go on. Cheers.